Hey guys, what's up? Spectre here. And as we barrel towards the release date of Cyberpunk 2077, the news keeps coming, and as always, I've boiled down all the latest headlines just for you. This week I'll be discussing quests, free DLC, lore, and more. Let's begin. Philip Weber, CD Projekt's design coordinator, recently spoke about quest design and variety in Cyberpunk, giving us some insight into exactly what we'll be doing during our time in Night City. Apparently, the game will feature 4 different quest types. We've also been reassured that the game won't be padded out with simple fetch quests, as devs wanted to go with a more handcrafted approach. The first of the bunch, main quests, the largest and longest quests in-game. These will be narratively driven, of course, although they will vary depending on our choices, and some paths will omit entire quest steps, again dependent on player choice. Next, of course, are side quests. Those of you familiar with CD Projekt's work will already know how engaging side content can be in their games, with some missions being even larger, or at the very least as large as, regular mainline quests. These quests will deliver ideas and stories that don't quite fit into the main story. They'll also help introduce new themes to the player or even specific locations. Street stories are next. As you already know, we'll be playing as V, a mercenary, and mercenaries take contracts. Street stories are missions that we'll receive from fixers like Dexter Deshawn in order to raise our street cred. This is a vital stat for unlocking new items, both cosmetic and practical, as well as new vendors. These jobs will be varied and approachable from multiple ways, supporting different playstyles. This is the bit that to me sounded like Radiant quests, but CDPR has outright denied that comparison, saying, "For us, quality is almost more important than quantity, and we just couldn't deliver this quality with modules we assemble in different ways to create these random quests. We don't just want to keep people busy, but actually give them something to do that's worth their while." They followed that up by saying that the team won't rely heavily upon fetch quests, and that any quests in that style will be better than those that players are used to. And finally, we have minor quests. These are bite-sized affairs, some of them being even only minutes long. These are the minuscule missions that allow devs to get creative, similar to the way they did in the Wild Hunt. Gamesindustry.biz recently sat down with some folks from CD Projekt Red to discuss the visual language behind Night City itself and how deeply it's rooted in the world's lore. Each district will apparently be heavily influenced by the people who live there and the reasons that led to them settling a given area. We've already seen this with Pacifica, a failed tourist destination and playground for the wealthy where a migrant working class has been left to fend for themselves in the wake of corporate collapse. We've also seen areas of the city with distinct Asian influence, which isn't new to Cyberpunk, as it often borrows from Asian culture, even fetishizing it at times. But with Night City being located on the West Coast, which is home to a large Asian community, this could lend some believability and authenticity to the game. This isn't where the game's lore-informed design stops. Players will be able to easily identify which era the sections of Night City, even the buildings themselves, were built. There are 4 distinct visual styles that are linked to 4 time periods in the game's lore. The first, Entropism. These areas and buildings were developed during the financial collapse, a time of great hardship and poverty. This financial hardship translated into utilitarian design, muted colors, and an emphasis on practicality. Eventually came the Age of Kitsch. This style grew out of a recovering economy and brought with it a resurgence of color and vibrance, which affected both fashion and architecture. Martha Jonkers of CD Projekt explains, "There are layers to the design of Night City and all its inhabitants. So when you drive around and you see a building that's sort of pink with these soft edges and the windows are sort of soft-shaped, you know that this is kitsch style. And you know that was built in a period of time where people had more money back then. It's telling you a story about the background of the city and gives an extra layer of believability." This explosion of color would be followed by the rise of neo-militarism. With corporations recovering and staking new claims across the globe, design would be heavily influenced by clean, stark aesthetics. And finally, Neo-Kitsch. This style would be developed in more recent years before the events of Cyberpunk 2077. It's the manifestation of a growing divide between the city's rich and poor, and as this delta widened, the rich would indulge in more colorful showcases of their wealth. But why dive into this and dedicate a whole section of my video to it? Well, I thought it would be interesting to shine a light on the design choices that influence our favorite games, the delicate blend of lore and visual art that goes into crafting a quality gaming experience. It's also really promising to hear that such consideration is being taken into designing my most anticipated game of all time. The Tokyo Game Show gave us a new trailer with a behind-the-scenes look at the game, a few key shots of Keanu on a bike, and some juicy details about post-launch DLC. Designer Max Pears has let slip a few details on what fans can expect from the studio in that regard. According to the designer, we can expect a strategy similar to The Witcher 3, which spoiled fans with free quality of life and UI upgrades, armor sets, weapon sets, and alternate looks for main characters. CD Projekt even went as far as to release a few side missions completely free, with larger expansion-style packs being sold for a retail price. And while Max Pears doesn't have a final say on the eventual strategy that CD Projekt uses in its post-release, it's hard to imagine that this fan-favorite studio would abandon such a consumer-friendly practice. He wrapped up the subject by saying, "We've learned a lot from Witcher 3, and how that DLC worked. We've learned from that, and that is the strategy for how we'll apply DLC to Cyberpunk as well. We'll take a look at what we've learned from Witcher 3 and apply that." So things are promising to say the least. And that was quite a bit, but that's it for this Cyberpunk update. Remember, all my sources are always in that description for those of you who like to read further. Make sure to sub for more coverage of this game and of games like Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. Also, as we near our next milestone, I'll be announcing another giveaway, so definitely stay tuned for that, as well as some more of my upcoming content. And as always, thanks for watching, guys.